The 18th century was a cauldron of change, where ideas ignited revolutions across Europe and beyond. What were the sparks that led to such monumental shifts? Join us as we delve into the age of revolution and its enduring impact on society. In the early 1700s, Europe was riddled with rigid monarchies and feudal systems. The social fabric was woven tightly, constraining the voices of the common folk. But seeds of change were being sown, preparing the ground for an inevitable upheaval. The Enlightenment emerged as a beacon of hope, championing reason and individual rights. Thinkers like Voltaire and Rousseau inspired a generation to question authority and strive for freedom. Their ideas would soon light the fires of rebellion. As the 18th century progressed, the American colonies were beginning to chafe under British rule. The call for independence resonated with Enlightenment ideals, triggering the American Revolution. Could this be the first domino to fall in a series of revolutions? With the Declaration of Independence in 1776, the American Revolution became a reality. It was a bold statement against tyranny and a rallying call for liberty. The world watched as the colonies fought for a new identity, inspiring others to seek their own freedom. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, France was brewing its own revolutionary sentiments. Economic hardship and social inequality sparked discontent among the populace. The cry for change was growing louder as citizens began to organize against the monarchy. The Estates General was convened in 1789, a pivotal moment in French history. The Third Estate, representing the common people, demanded a voice. This marked the beginning of a struggle that would transform France and ignite the flames of revolution across Europe. On July 14th, 1789, the storming of the Bastille symbolized the uprising against oppression. It was not just a physical action, but a powerful statement of defiance. The fortress's fall marked the dawn of the French Revolution, inspiring revolts across the continent. As the revolution unfolded, the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen was proclaimed. This document enshrined individual liberties and equality, showcasing the Enlightenment's ideals in action. It was a revolutionary manifesto for all of humanity. The revolution led to the rise of radical factions, with the Jacobins at the forefront. Their leader, Maximilien Robespierre, ushered in the Reign of Terror, a tumultuous period marked by violence and purges. What were the costs of this quest for a new order? Amidst the turmoil, the revolutionary fervor reached beyond France. Inspired by these events, uprisings sparked in neighboring countries, including the Netherlands and Italy. The revolutionary wave was sweeping across Europe, challenging old orders and igniting aspirations for change. As the revolution progressed, Europe witnessed the rise of nationalism. Citizens began to identify with their nations rather than dynastic rulers. This shift in consciousness laid the groundwork for future nation-states and modern political identities. The Napoleonic Wars emerged from the revolutionary chaos. As Napoleon Bonaparte sought to expand French ideals across Europe, his conquests would reshape borders and influence entire nations, leading to a complex legacy of both liberation and oppression. The Treaty of Vienna in 1815 aimed to restore the balance of power after Napoleon's defeat. It redrew the map of Europe, attempting to quell revolutionary fervor. But the ideals of the revolution remained alive, continuing to inspire movements for change. In the aftermath, the Age of Revolution laid the groundwork for future upheavals. The echoes of 18th century struggles can still be felt today, as modern societies continue to grapple with the ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity. What lessons can we learn from this turbulent time? The Age of Revolution transformed Europe and the world, igniting the spirit of change and the pursuit of rights. As history teaches us, the fight for justice and equality is ongoing. How will future generations carry the torch of revolution forward? As the 18th century wore on, new ideas began to challenge the status quo across Europe. Enlightenment thinkers like Voltaire and Rousseau inspired citizens to question authority and embrace reason. Their philosophies sparked widespread debates about democracy governance, and natural rights, laying the groundwork for revolutionary fervor. Meanwhile, social unrest simmered beneath the surface. Economic hardship exacerbated by wars and poor harvests left many struggling to survive. The discontented masses began to organize, fueled by pamphlets and writings that spread revolutionary ideas like wildfire. In France, the Estates General was convened in 1789, a response to the monarchy's financial crisis. This assembly would become a battleground for class interests, as the Third Estate, representing commoners, sought more power and influence. Their demands would soon ignite a revolution. The storming of the Bastille on July 14th, 1789, became a powerful symbol of defiance against tyranny. As revolutionaries seized the fortress prison, they sent shockwaves through Europe, igniting a sense of possibility and a collective yearning for freedom among oppressed citizens. As news of the revolution spread, other nations began to feel the tremors of change. In Austria and Prussia, monarchs feared the contagion of revolutionary ideals. They formed coalitions to quell any uprisings, but the seeds of change had already been sown. In Britain, responses to the revolution varied dramatically. While some celebrated the achievement of liberty, others feared the potential for similar uprisings at home. Writers like Thomas Paine urged for reform, advocating for a more equitable society in the face of monarchy's resistance. The radical phase of the French Revolution began in 1792, marked by the rise of the Jacobins. They pushed for more aggressive reforms and the execution of King Louis XVI, believing that the monarchy must be dismantled to fully realize the revolution's ideals. The Reign of Terror, instigated by Maximilien Robespierre, saw thousands executed under the guillotine. This dark chapter highlighted the revolution's internal conflicts and the lengths to which factions would go to protect their vision of the new France. As the revolution spiraled, the Napoleonic Wars erupted, reshaping the European landscape. Napoleon Bonaparte rose to power, promising stability amid chaos, but his ambitions also sparked resistance and further revolutions across the continent. Beyond France, the revolutionary spirit inspired uprisings in the Americas, leading to the Haitian Revolution, where enslaved people fought for their freedom. This struggle echoed the ideals of the French Revolution, showcasing the global reach of revolutionary thought. As revolutions unfolded, women began to assert their voices. Figures like Olympe de Gouges emerged, advocating for women's rights and challenging the male-dominated revolutionary narrative. Their contributions and struggles would lay the groundwork for future feminist movements. While revolutions promised liberty and justice, the resulting power vacuums often led to instability. Nations grappled with the consequences of rapid change, struggling to balance new ideals with entrenched systems of power and privilege. The Congress of Vienna, held in 1815 after Napoleon's defeat, aimed to restore order and prevent the spread of revolutionary ideas. Yet, the spirit of revolution could not easily be extinguished. As nationalistic sentiments began to rise across Europe, the ideals born from the Age of Revolution began to inspire movements worldwide. From Latin America to Asia, people sought to overthrow colonial rule and demand their rights, driven by the belief that freedom and equality should be universal. In the aftermath of the revolutions, Europe's social fabric began to fray. Class struggles intensified as industrialization took hold, creating new tensions between the working class and the bourgeoisie. These conflicts would shape the next wave of revolutionary thought. The spread of print media during the Age of Revolution played a crucial role in disseminating ideas. Pamphlets, newspapers, and books became vehicles for revolutionary thought, allowing voices of dissent to be heard and mobilize support for change. As the 19th century approached, the Napoleonic Wars had left an indelible mark on Europe. The maps were redrawn, alliances shifted, and the concept of nation-states began to take shape, altering the political landscape significantly. The impact of the Age of Revolution extended beyond politics, influencing art and culture. Romanticism emerged as a response to the upheaval, celebrating individualism and the sublime, reflecting the emotions stirred by revolution. In the wake of the revolutions, debates about citizenship and rights became central. As nations struggled to define who belonged, the ideas of equality and fraternity were challenged by issues of race, gender, and class. The 1830s saw a resurgence of revolutionary activity, ignited by discontent with conservative regimes. From the July Revolution in France to uprisings in Belgium, the cry for change resonated across Europe, akin to thunder rumbling before a storm. Revolutions in 1848, also known as the Springtime of Nations, swept through Europe. Workers, students, and intellectuals united in the name of freedom, demanding political reforms and social justice, but the wave ultimately met with harsh repression. Despite the setbacks, the spirit of revolution persisted. Political movements continued to evolve, giving rise to social democracy and socialism as alternatives to the established orders. These ideologies would challenge traditional power structures profoundly. The legacy of the Age of Revolution can be seen in the modern democratic systems that we recognize today. The struggles and triumphs of those who came before shaped the fundamental principles of justice, rights, and representation. As Europe emerged from the tumult of revolutions, the lingering questions of identity and belonging persisted. Nationalism began to surge, intertwining with revolutionary ideals as people sought to define their nations in the wake of upheaval. The Age of Revolution ultimately served as a crucible for modern political thought. The debates and struggles of this era laid the foundations for contemporary discussions around democracy, human rights, and the role of the state in society. As we reflect on this transformative period, it is crucial to acknowledge the multifaceted nature of revolutions. Each uprising carried its unique context, yet they all contributed to a broader narrative of humanity's quest for freedom and justice. The Age of Revolution not only ignited political change, but also awakened a cultural consciousness. Artists, writers, and intellectuals engaged with the revolutionary spirit, shaping art and literature that spoke to the human condition in profound ways. With the passage of time, the echoes of the Age of Revolution continued to be felt. The ongoing struggles for rights and justice remind us that the ideals of liberty and equality remain relevant in today's world, urging us to carry the torch forward. As we delve deeper into the Age of Revolution, it's evident that the impact of these transformative events shaped not just Europe, but the entire world. The fight for a more just and equitable society goes on, urging each generation to reflect on their role in this ongoing journey towards freedom. As the 18th century progressed, the Enlightenment sparked a wave of thought that questioned traditional authority. Philosophers like Voltaire and Rousseau championed individual rights and civic freedom, laying the groundwork for revolutionary ideas. Their writings inspired a generation yearning for change as the flames of dissent crackled across the continent. Amidst this intellectual awakening, the common people began to rise. The harsh realities of poverty and inequality fueled their resolve. Street gatherings and salons became the breeding grounds for revolutionary sentiments, as citizens clamored for their voices to be heard and their rights to be acknowledged. In France, these aspirations culminated in the storming of the Bastille on July 14, 1789. This event marked a symbolic break from the oppressive monarchy and a bold declaration for liberty. The echoes of the Bastille's fall resonated throughout Europe, inspiring uprisings in various nations. The French Revolution unleashed a torrent of change, not just for France but for all of Europe. The Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen articulated principles that transcended borders, promoting ideals of freedom and equality that would challenge monarchies across the continent. In the wake of the revolution, radical factions emerged, each with their vision for France's future. The Jacobins, advocating for a republic of virtue, clashed with moderates, leading to internal strife. This chaos underscored the complexities of revolutionary change and the risks of fervor unchecked. The Reign of Terror, spearheaded by Robespierre, epitomized the dark side of revolution. In their quest to eradicate counter-revolutionaries, thousands faced execution, illustrating the perilous balance between liberty and tyranny. The revolution's initial ideals began to falter under the weight of fear and suspicion. As the revolution consumed France, other nations observed closely, wary of similar uprisings. In Britain, debates on reform intensified, spurred by revolutionary fervor across the Channel. Intellectuals and activists pushed for political and social changes, igniting a dialogue on rights and representation. The waves of revolution also reached the Americas, where the echoes of the French Revolution inspired revolutionary fervor in Haiti. Led by Toussaint Louverture, enslaved people rose against colonial oppressors, signaling an important moment in the struggle for freedom and equality across the globe. Simultaneously, the ideas of revolution began to influence the political landscape in Spain and its colonies. The Spanish-American Wars of Independence were on the horizon, driven by the desire for self-determination and autonomy. The Age of Revolution was reshaping perceptions of governance and rights worldwide. By the late 18th century, the revolutionary tide had also reached Russia, where discontent simmered beneath the surface. Influenced by Enlightenment ideas, the Russian populace began to question the autocratic rule of the Tsar, setting the stage for future upheaval and reform. The French Revolution's ideals continued to resonate, even leading to the rise of Napoleon Bonaparte. His vision of a unified Europe brought both reform and conflict, as he sought to spread revolutionary principles through military conquests. Yet, his reign raised questions about the true nature of liberty. As Napoleon expanded his empire, the reaction against his rule led to new movements across Europe. The rise of nationalism began to foster a sense of identity and unity among diverse peoples. This transformation would further fuel revolutions and the quest for self-governance in various regions. The restored monarchies after Napoleon's fall attempted to suppress revolutionary fervor, but societal changes had already taken root. The Congress of Vienna sought to establish a balance of power, yet the revolutionary spirit continued to simmer as various groups pushed for rights and reforms. Throughout the 19th century, the echoes of the revolutions resonated through literature and art. Writers like Victor Hugo and artists like Eugène Delacroix captured the struggles and aspirations of their time, inspiring future generations to continue the fight for justice and equality. As Europe approached the mid-19th century, the ripple effects of the Age of Revolution began to influence other global movements. The concepts of liberty and equality found their way into Asia, Africa, and the Americas, as various cultures began to assert their rights against colonial powers. The Age of Revolution was not merely a historical footnote, it was a catalyst for modernity. The clash between tradition and progress shaped the futures of nations, setting the stage for conflicts and conversations that would continue for generations to come. Despite the tumult, the Age of Revolution sowed the seeds of political ideologies that would dominate the 19th century. Socialism, liberalism, and nationalism emerged from the ashes of revolutions, each vying for the hearts and minds of citizens across Europe and beyond. As revolutions ebbed and flowed, the conversations surrounding civil rights became increasingly vital. Women's rights movements began to rise, as women who had fought alongside men for liberty now demanded their own voices and rights in society. The legacy of the Age of Revolution is intertwined with the narrative of human rights. The principles established during this time laid the groundwork for future international human rights frameworks, shaping the ethos of modern democracies. As the century progressed, revolutions transformed not only governments, but also societal structures. The push for industrialization began to reshape economies, altering the relationship between labor and capital, and creating new social dynamics across Europe. The interconnectedness of these revolutionary events highlighted a common aspiration for dignity and justice. As people across the world sought to redefine their identities, they drew strength from each other's struggles and successes, marking a necessary shift in how societies viewed power. The Age of Revolution brought forth a rethinking of governance. The emergence of constitutional monarchies and republics signified a departure from absolute rule, reflecting the demand for accountability and the rule of law, values that resonate to this day. As the 19th century dawned, the revolutionary ideals continued to evolve, impacting education, art, and society at large. The concept of universal education gained traction, reflecting the belief that knowledge was key to empowerment and societal progress. In this transformative period, the role of women began to shift significantly. Women became increasingly active in social movements, contributing to the discourse surrounding rights and education, asserting their place within the revolutionary narrative. The revolutionary spirit ignited a wave of artistic expression, as artists depicted the struggles of their times. Movements like Romanticism emerged, celebrating individual emotion and passion, reflecting the societal transformations stemming from revolutionary ideals. Despite the progress, the aftermath of revolutions was often tumultuous. Social unrest lingered as people grappled with the complexities of newfound freedoms and responsibilities. The quest for stability remained an ongoing challenge for societies in the wake of change. As the century wore on, revolutions in Europe often inspired movements in other regions. The cries for liberty echoed in Latin America, where leaders like Simón Bolívar fought against colonial powers, forging new nations and identities. The interconnectedness of these revolutionary movements illustrates a shared human desire for justice and self-determination. As nations emerged, they found common ground in their struggles, recognizing that the fight for rights transcended borders and cultures. By the mid-19th century, the revolutionary fervor was palpable across Europe. As workers began to organize for rights, labor movements emerged, demanding fair wages and working conditions, further challenging the status quo. As the Industrial Revolution progressed, the rapid changes in society led to new social classes. The rise of the bourgeoisie created tensions with the working class, as economic disparities became increasingly apparent. The labor movements of the mid-19th century were pivotal in shaping modern social policies. Strikes and protests became common as workers fought for their rights, leading to significant reforms and the recognition of labor rights as a fundamental aspect of modern governance. As revolutions continued to unfold, the question of national identity gained prominence. The 1848 revolutions, known as the Springtime of Nations, saw a surge in nationalist movements demanding independence and self-governance across Europe. The failures and successes of the 1848 revolutions laid the groundwork for future changes. Although many uprisings were suppressed, the ideas of democracy and national identity gained traction, ultimately influencing later movements and revolutions. The revolutions of 1848 underscored the notion that political change must be accompanied by social reform. As the working class joined forces with the bourgeoisie, a coalition for rights emerged, redefining the boundaries of political discourse. The ripple effects of the Age of Revolution extended beyond Europe into Asia. The Taiping Rebellion in China during the 1850s was influenced by the revolutionary spirit, challenging the Qing dynasty and calling for radical social reforms. The Age of Revolution ultimately reshaped the global landscape, creating a wave of independence movements in various regions. Nations began to assert their right to self-determination, drawing inspiration from the principles of liberty that resonated through the ages. By the late 19th century, the revolutionary ideals transitioned into new forms. The rise of socialism and communism arose in response to the inequalities perpetuated by industrial capitalism, shaping political ideologies and movements worldwide. The labor movements continued to evolve, leading to the establishment of trade unions and labor rights. Workers organized to advocate for fair wages and working conditions, marking a significant shift in the relationship between labor and capital. The Age of Revolution instilled a belief in the power of collective action. The legacy of these movements inspired generations to seek justice through solidarity, highlighting the importance of unity in the face of oppression. As the century turned, the legacy of the Age of Revolution continued to inform global debates around rights and governance. The principles of democracy were increasingly invoked as nations grappled with their identities in a rapidly changing world. The events of the Age of Revolution laid the foundation for the 20th century's struggles for rights and freedoms. As movements for civil rights, women's rights, and decolonization emerged, they drew inspiration from the revolutionary ideals that had taken root years before. The struggles that characterized the Age of Revolution remind us that the quest for justice and equality is ongoing. Each generation must continue to challenge the status quo, advocating for a more just and equitable society in an ever-evolving world. As we reflect on the Age of Revolution, it becomes clear that the aspirations for freedom and justice are deeply rooted in human history. The struggles of the past echo in the calls for change today, reminding us of our shared responsibility to carry forward this legacy. The legacy of the Age of Revolution serves as a reminder that the fight for dignity and rights is far from over. The sparks ignited during this turbulent time continue to inspire movements across the world. Let us learn from the past, ensuring that the ideals of liberty and justice remain alive for generations to come. As the 18th century unfolded, Europe was a cauldron of revolutionary ideas. Intellectuals and thinkers challenged the status quo, sparking debates that would ignite the flames of change. This era was marked by the rise of Enlightenment philosophies, which questioned authority and celebrated human reason. These ideas would soon propel ordinary citizens into the forefront of history. Among the key figures was Voltaire, a powerful voice advocating for freedom of expression. His sharp wit and critique of religious intolerance resonated widely, inspiring many to take a stand against oppression. Voltaire's writings challenged traditional beliefs, encouraging a new wave of critical thinking across Europe. Meanwhile, the French Revolution was brewing, spurred by economic hardship and social inequality. Citizens of France, inspired by Enlightenment ideals, began to unite against the monarchy's oppressive rule. The Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen in 1789 marked a turning point, asserting that all men are born free and equal. The storming of the Bastille became a powerful symbol of resistance against tyranny. On July 14th, 1789, revolutionaries stormed this fortress prison, marking the start of widespread upheaval. This event demonstrated the people's willingness to fight for their rights and freedoms, inspiring similar movements across Europe. As the revolution progressed, radical factions emerged, each with differing visions for France's future. The Jacobins, led by Maximilien Robespierre, pushed for a more extreme approach, culminating in the Reign of Terror. Paranoia and violence gripped the nation as the revolutionaries turned on themselves, leading to widespread executions. While France was engulfed in chaos, the rest of Europe watched with a mixture of fear and fascination. Monarchies throughout the continent feared the spread of revolutionary fervor. Many nations began to crack down on dissent, tightening their grip on power to prevent similar uprisings within their own borders. In Britain, the impact of the French Revolution sparked a wave of reform movements. Political thinkers like Edmund Burke criticized the revolution, while others, such as Mary Wollstonecraft, championed women's rights and social equality. This period saw the emergence of a dialogue about individual rights that transcended borders. Back in France, the revolutionary ideals were put to the test during the rise of Napoleon Bonaparte. Initially seen as a liberator, Napoleon's ambitions led to the establishment of an empire that conflicted with the revolution's core principles of liberty and equality. His reign would ultimately shape Europe for decades to come. As Napoleon's empire expanded, it left a complex legacy that influenced nationalist movements across Europe. The ideas of self-determination and governance began to take root, inspiring various ethnic groups to seek independence from empires. The stage was set for future conflicts as the ideals of the French Revolution found new expression. The Age of Revolution extended beyond France and Britain, as the Americas also felt the tremors of change. Inspired by revolutionary ideals, movements in Latin America began to push against colonial rule, with figures like Simón Bolívar leading the charge for independence. The winds of change were sweeping across the globe. In the United States, the effects of the American Revolution were still resonating. The fight for freedom inspired a spirit of democracy and self-governance, leading to debates about the future of slavery and civil rights. These issues would plague the nation, highlighting the ongoing struggle for true equality. As the 18th century drew to a close, the revolutionary ideals continued to permeate society. Reform movements gained momentum, advocating for social justice and the rights of marginalized groups. The period laid the groundwork for future struggles, demonstrating that change was not merely a moment, but a continuous journey. The impact of the Age of Revolution was not limited to political change. It also transformed cultural landscapes. Art and literature flourished, echoing the revolutionary spirit. Artists like Jacques-Louis David immortalized key moments of the revolution, inspiring future generations through their works. Ironically, while the revolution sought to elevate the voice of the people, it also created divisions and factions. The struggle for power often overshadowed the original ideals of liberty and equality, reminding us that the path to progress is fraught with challenges. These lessons are vital as contemporary movements reflect on their own journeys. Emerging from the turmoil of the revolution was the concept of nationalism. As people rallied around shared identities, they began to envision new forms of governance. This new consciousness would inspire the unification of Italy and Germany in the coming century, reshaping the political landscape of Europe. In the years that followed, the revolutionary fervor set the stage for the Industrial Revolution. The need for social change and progress soon inspired technological advancements. The increasing demand for labor shifted societies, leading to urbanization and new social dynamics within European cities. As industries grew, so too did the working class. The rise of factory work brought about new challenges, including labor exploitation and poor working conditions. Workers began to organize, forming unions to advocate for their rights, echoing the revolutionary spirit of their predecessors. In response to these conditions, the seeds of socialism began to take root. Thinkers like Karl Marx emerged, critiquing capitalism and advocating for a society where the means of production were collectively owned. His ideas would resonate in various movements across Europe, igniting debates about class struggle and equality. The 19th century witnessed the culmination of revolutionary ideas and their impact on global dynamics. The principles established during the Age of Revolution would influence not only Europe, but also colonies seeking independence and self-governance. This ripple effect transformed societies and inspired countless uprisings. As the tumult of revolutions continued, the relationships between nations evolved. Diplomacy and alliances became crucial, leading to a complex web of interactions that would define future conflicts. The echoes of the Age of Revolution could be felt in every corner of the globe, shaping the course of history. In the cultural sphere, the legacy of the Age of Revolution sparked a renaissance of artistic expression. Literature, music, and visual arts began to reflect the tumultuous spirit of the times, reshaping cultural identity in profound ways. Artists sought to capture the essence of human experience during this transformative period. The philosophical debates initiated during the Age of Revolution also paved the way for modern political ideologies. The ideals of democracy, equality, and justice discussed then laid the foundation for contemporary governance models. Today's movements are rooted in the principles established in that tumultuous century. As revolutionaries sought to reshape their worlds, they also grappled with the consequences of their actions. The ideals of liberty often clashed with the realities of power, leading to unforeseen challenges. Understanding these complexities is essential for comprehending the dynamics of modern political movements. Throughout this period, the age-old struggle for human rights became increasingly prominent. The voices of the oppressed began to rise, demanding recognition and justice. The calls for rights would echo through history, leading to the establishment of organizations dedicated to civil liberties and social justice. In many ways, the Age of Revolution was a double-edged sword. While it brought about significant progress, it also highlighted the fragility of achievements. As movements evolved, the risk of losing hard-won gains remained, necessitating continual vigilance and advocacy for justice and equality. As the 19th century progressed, the ideals of the Age of Revolution influenced subsequent generations. Movements for women's suffrage, labor rights, and civil rights began to take root, drawing directly from the struggles and triumphs of earlier revolutions. The fight for equality expanded, encompassing a broader spectrum of rights. In contemporary times, the revolutionary ideals remain a guiding light for social movements across the world. The continued pursuit of justice, empowerment, and democracy reflects the lessons learned from the Age of Revolution. These principles inspire people to stand against oppression, fostering global solidarity. The interconnectedness of today's world further emphasizes the relevance of the Age of Revolution. As technology accelerates communication, the spread of ideas and movements occurs at unprecedented speeds. History shows us that the quest for justice is universal, transcending borders and cultures. In conclusion, the Age of Revolution is a testament to the enduring human spirit. It reminds us that the pursuit of rights and freedoms is a continuous journey, one that requires resilience and commitment. The struggles and triumphs of the past continue to shape our present, urging us to honor the legacy of those who fought for change. As viewers reflect on the powerful lessons from the Age of Revolution, they are encouraged to engage in their communities and advocate for justice and equality. The sparks of change ignited in the past continue to illuminate the path forward, urging us all to contribute to a more just world. As the dust settled on the revolutions, the political landscape of Europe began to crystallize. The influence of Enlightenment thinkers, once confined to salons, now permeated the streets. The cries for liberty and equality resonated far beyond the initial battles. This era was not merely a series of conflicts. It was the birth of modern political thought. The French Revolution stood as a beacon of change, inspiring uprisings throughout Europe. Citizens rallied against monarchical rule, motivated by a vision of a republic founded on democratic principles. The storming of the Bastille ignited a fire that would not be easily extinguished. This rebellion became a symbol of the fight for the rights of the common people. As revolutionary fervor swept the continent, neighboring monarchies trembled. Fear of insurrection led to coalitions forming against revolutionary France. The wars that ensued would shape borders and redefine power dynamics. Yet, amid chaos, the seeds of nationalism began to sprout, uniting diverse ethnic groups under new banners. In England, the impact of revolution was felt in both politics and arts. The Romantic movement emerged as a reaction to the tumultuous changes, celebrating individualism and nature. Poets and artists sought to express the human experience amidst the upheaval. Their works reflected hope and despair in equal measure, capturing the spirit of the age. Women, too, played crucial roles in these revolutions, challenging traditional gender norms. Figures like Olympe de Gouges emerged advocating for women's rights and equality. Their voices, though often marginalized, laid the groundwork for future feminist movements. The revolution, thus, was as much about social change as it was about political upheaval. While revolutions sparked radical change, they also birthed complex responses. The rise of conservatism sought to restore the old order, arguing for stability over upheaval. The ideological battle between revolutionaries and conservatives would dominate the political discourse for decades, influencing future generations. In the years following these revolutions, Europe witnessed a series of uprisings and reform movements. The cries for suffrage, labor rights, and social justice echoed the revolutionary ideals. Activists emerged, channeling the spirit of their predecessors to continue the fight. This legacy of activism became a powerful force for change across the continent. As the 19th century approached, the revolution's influence reached beyond Europe's borders. The ideas of freedom and equality inspired movements worldwide, from the Americas to Asia. Colonized nations began to question imperial rule, fueled by the conviction that they too deserved autonomy and self-determination. The Age of Revolution redefined not just political structures, but also societal norms. The belief in citizenship and participation in governance became central tenets in many nations. This newfound consciousness encouraged people to engage actively, shaping the trajectory of their societies. Ultimately, the Age of Revolution was a crucible of transformation. The tensions between old and new paved the way for modern democracies. The lessons learned from this tumultuous period continue to resonate, reminding us that the fight for justice, equality, and freedom is an ongoing journey. As we reflect on the Age of Revolution, let us honor the sacrifices made by countless individuals who dared to dream of a better world. The echoes of their struggles remind us that every voice matters in the pursuit of justice. May we carry their legacy forward, striving for a future where equality and freedom reign for all?